Welcome to the session number 6 of Vedic Unified Theory. There was slight disruption in internet, so now I am restarting it. We will go to the PowerPoint slides. Yeah. So today is the session number 6. The title is Knowledge. The Sanskrit term is Jnana. Of course, we are very much engaged in acquisition of knowledge, and today we will see Vedic perspective of this dimension of our life. A quick review of the previous 5 sessions. In session number 1, we looked at the world scenario as we find it today, when human population is broadly divided between science and religion. Religion tries to offer a comprehensive picture of animate as well as inanimate world, but it lacks logical and rational framework. However, science is based on a logical rational framework. It is universal, but is not able to give us a correct nature of consciousness, and also cannot guide us what our basic objective of human life is, why we are in this world. And that is where we thought we examine in session number 2 if the classical Vedic literature can guide us. Can it give us a comprehensive science of matter and consciousness, or what we say unified theory of matter and consciousness? Matter that is in physical form, and when it is too gross, then it is amenable to our senses. However, consciousness is a non physical form. And we saw we have used many terms for this unified theory, such as science of sciences, Vedic unified theory, Satya Sanatana Vedic Dharma, SSVD, and we also have called scientific spirituality to differentiate it from what is prevalent religious spirituality, which I think is defective, is a kind of pseudo spirituality, because if it lacks rational framework, it has no locus standi, no foundation at all. And in short, we can call it as dharma also, though this term is misunderstood in India as religion. But dharma is a nice word with wide connotation, which can take care of all these terms, which can be used alternatively for what we are seeking. Session number 3 examined the question, who am I as a human being, my total being as such, as I exist in this world. And there we noticed our non physical tiny consciousness is a point like singularity, and that non physical consciousness has 3 extraordinary powers: to know, to experience, and act. And to be able to do so, it requires the instruments of body and mind. So we are a composite of body, mind, and soul, as a common man says, which is, and lately in later sessions we have seen it is not the total description of me as body, mind, and soul, though a common man says like that. It has to be superimposed or pervaded by certain non voluntary vital forces, what we have noticed as prana in the last week. So that pranic forces, a body and mind, are functional when I want to use them. And also, last week we have seen that there is a all pervading infinite consciousness, and that is Satchidananda Swarup. So, Anand is very much part of that intrinsic, and that is blissfulness, and that is what is closest to us. So, we are not just body, mind, and soul, we are in a deep ocean of that infinite consciousness also that acts in two particular manner that ensures that my entire being, my entire system is made functional. So that is sustaining force, so to say. And if it withdraws its force, then I will collapse immediately. And not only that, if that's what we attempt in deep in meditation, I can have a taste of being with Him when I am disconnect from my body and mind. And then maybe I get a taste of that absolute happiness. So these are some issues we have discussed in previous sessions. Continuing with our review, in session number 4, we devoted to though animate world is a very with millions of species, we notice that human beings are uniquely apart from all other species other on the other hand. So we examined that particularly is related to our the extraordinary powers of to know, to act, and to experience. In all these three dimensions, we have some very unique features. In the direction of knowledge, we saw that they are programmed species with the natural instinct, while we have intellectual faculty through which we are always confronted with finding the correct choice between right and wrong, good and bad, do's and don'ts, etc. Other species are programmed, so they just go in one particular direction and they don't have any choice. Now, corresponding to this freedom of thought at our intellectual level, we have many choices as far as our action is concerned. So, based on our actions, some are good human beings, some are not so good, and some are very, very good human beings. So, we have different categories in a human society, while in all other species, say all cows are good cows, all lions are good lions, all tigers are good tigers, elephants are good. So, there is nothing like a good elephant and bad elephant. But in a human being, based on our action, how do we interact with others? How do I uh, inter, interact with the environment, whether I harm it or not to harm it? Depending on all of function, I fall into a particular category. And again, when it comes to experiencing, of course, we are seeking joy and happiness in life. On all other species, there is a point of saturation, but human beings is the scheme of life is open-ended, so to say. Then the question arises: is our life to end just like a mirage-like experience? We are always seeking something, but never to find. But then it would be a faulty design, which otherwise is a very wonderful design of the universe. So we made a conjecture that there must be a finality of our happiness. And that's what we have observed in the last week, that yes, there is a so-called Anandamaya course which is closest to us. And that's what brought us to the session number 5, where we noticed just like we have a tiny consciousness that has three powers to know, to experience, and to act, there is another infinite consciousness which has these three kind of powers, but they are in a very infinite sense. It has all the knowledge. Indeed, it has the knowledge, and according to the knowledge, the universe is made. And it has an ability to act in the sense we acquire certain tools to make anything, but it doesn't require, that entity does not require a tool because it is all pervading and it is within each and every smallest particle. So it can motivate that small particle and regulate it according to the laws of nature for matter, and it governs all of us, our consciousness, according to the law of karma. That brings us to the present session number 6. Today, actually, we are entering into a group of 3 sessions. So, today is our beginning, and this section will be 3 sessions devoted to what is called knowledge, action, and upasana. So today we are going to discuss knowledge aspect. So this all three in one package is called as threefold human pursuits. There is a technical term called pasthantayi. So a human life is in basically three-dimensional human pursuits in the direction of knowledge, action, and third term I have used as upasana, which loosely can be translated into English as being with him, being with that infinite consciousness. So that can be compared with our ability. We have 3 powers: to know and act and experience. So of course, this is how we must realize those 3 powers: gaining knowledge and getting into performing all kinds of actions, and in the direction of experience, the ultimate climax point is to be with him, to taste that what is called Anand. Now we move on to the today's session, which is starting point is our threefold pursuits, which are namely knowledge, action, and upasana. So first observation we make is knowledge and action are common to all species. They also have sensory organs and motor organs to acquire knowledge from their surroundings and to act upon the surroundings. Of course, their actions are very limited for their survival, to give birth to their children and rearing their children, and so on and so forth. That's what they are engaged in, which we are also engaged in. And they are for survival, etc. They are quite equipped with the requisite knowledge, which we have already discussed in the form of instinctive knowledge, as we have discussed in the Sankhya diagram. The memory storage device is called ahankar. So as if the requisite knowledge for a dog or a cat or a mouse, it is already embedded in that unit of ahankar. In our case, the instinctive knowledge is very, very small fraction and it is left open, and that is what we build up in human life. So we gather knowledge and fill it up in our storage device. So knowledge and action are common to all species, but upasana, this third dimension, is a unique feature for humans alone, and it is the climax associated with joy, pleasure, and is the conclusive experiential evidence of the infinite consciousness. So upasana is very relevant to us, and it goes hand in hand with this course. That's why we devote first few minutes to meditation. Meditation is an attempt to bring our mind still, blank, and calm, and then I can disconnect from my mind and be with that infinite consciousness, also called as Ishwar. So when we use the term upasana, it will always mean Ishwar upasana, what like Maharishi Dayanand has stated in second principle of Arya Samaj, usi ki upasana karni yogya hai. So the term upasana may come alone, but it implicitly always means Ishwar upasana, being with that infinite consciousness, also called as Ishwar. So meditation is an attempt to be with him, and when I am with him, 2 things are happening: that I taste the what is his intrinsic attribute of Anand. And when I taste that, then I have an awareness that this was something very good. And if many of us report the same kind of consequence, then we ask ourselves, what was that something so good? Was attribute always feel like that, but that is not the case. Because as a human being through transient, what is that feel good? Whose attribute is that? And that is what is the evidence for the consciousness. Anyway, this is a general observation for our threefold pursuits, concentrate on the first, namely knowledge. Observation, which I have been saying many times, is called instinct that is embedded in their ahankar. Others may have more powerful sensory organs, including, say, onset of earthquake, etc. So their instinctive knowledge is quite powerful, and in certain aspects, they are much superior to human beings. However, others do not care about uncovering the knowledge related to consciousness. They are not concerned with the what we can say as spiritual issues, such as who has made the universe, why we are in this world, etc. So they are not concerned with these aspects of life, and that's where human beings are much superior because they are inquisitive about everything else. Let's look at then define the knowledge. What is knowledge? In particular, because in the Sanskrit term, there are two words for knowledge, namely Vidya and Jnana. English term, we translate both these Sanskrit words as knowledge, but because Sanskrit terms, there are two Sanskrit terms for knowledge, let us try to understand what is the basis of it, and that will enlighten us slightly as we want to venture into this dimension of knowledge. So, Vidya, there are near infinite things in the universe. Knowledge about all things is Vidya. The, the term is made out of the root Vid. Vid is for two basic directions, Sattayam, which is for existence, and Jnana, to know. So, the word Vidya means something exists and that is worth knowing. So, as far as human beings are concerned, we are interested in knowing everything that exists. So, now as we come into this world, there are almost near infinite things, and getting to know everything as it is in a correct manner is acquisition of knowledge. So look at Vidya as the knowledge that exists in the universe that ought to be acquired. So Vidya is the knowledge that ought to be acquired, like a library is full of Vidya, knowledge. Now try to understand the term, Jian. What fraction of Vidya a particular person has acquired is his knowledge, his Jnana. So Jnana is, I have acquired a fraction of the knowledge that is in the library. So this is my knowledge. So Vidya is knowledge which is scattered in the world. Jnana is the knowledge that I have acquired. This is very important to understand. The word Jnana is coming from the root Jna, avabodhane, to know. So what it means is, my knowledge is always less than the Vidya, because Vidya is infinite. Only for that infinite consciousness, that Ishwar, his knowledge is equal to Vidya. For others, for us, our knowledge, our jnana is less than vidya. We can never become sarvajya, so to say, is it not? So this has to be understood that vidya and jnana are two different terms. Though in English we have to use the word knowledge, different meanings. Let's move on now. A common man's definition of what is knowledge. It is basically to know a thing as it is. If I know a thing exactly as it is, I have got a part of knowledge about that thing. Now, the things are right at the starting point, we can say in this world, there are animate and inanimate things. Certain things move around, always stationary, is it not? So, of course, animate things have certain other characteristics too, beside moving around. So, as we are developing this Vedic unified theory, these animate things have within themselves something called consciousness. So, consciousness is of two types, the tiny ones like we have, and there is an infinite consciousness. I make certain things move, like an automobile, like I push a chair, things like that. But there are a lot of things moving in the universe, like clouds are moving, air is blowing, water flows. So all these things, movements are also caused by another consciousness, that is infinite consciousness. So when it comes to the things, basically, there are two things, two major divisions, namely matter and consciousness. So as we see the visible world, conscious beings animate things. Some inanimate things that don't show up any consciousness, they are made of matter. So there are spiritual and material objects, so to say. I again always want to point out, I hesitate to use the word spiritual, but I don't want to concede my ground to the religions. Just because religions use this term, it doesn't mean they have a monopoly on that. Their spirituality is defective spirituality, and I think we have a job to do to go to the common man and tell him what is the true spirituality. And I have stated in earlier session, true spirituality is infinite consciousness, myself and matter, we all exist in this world. Made by that IC for our benefit. So IC has made the world out of matter for all us, all of our conscious. And there was another important part of that statement that every one of us, particularly in the human form, can connect to that infinite consciousness in real time. No religion allows to do that. They have confined themselves to a place of worship and all kinds of other jargon. We are not following those concepts. So our true spirituality is as defined earlier, which can be only part of unified theory of matter and consciousness. If somebody is putting false claim about spirituality, we should not accept that claim. Now, whenever I use the term spirituality, I mean true spirituality. So here we have observed in last week's session that that infinite consciousness is the source of all true knowledge. The universe is manifestation of his design. First comes his knowledge, then comes the universe. So he is the source of all true knowledge. Said I think I have used this Sankhya and Patanjali's statement last week. Sankhya, it is saying, Sahi Sarvavit Sarvakarta. He is all knowing and he is all doing. His knowledge, then his action. So Sarvavit comes first, then Sarvakarta. Patanjali has also stated that Ishwar is Purvesham api Guru Kalinan. Before that, he says, Purush Vishesha Ishwara Sarvajya Bijam. So he all knowing, and this is not that he has acquired it from anybody else. He has it within himself as a seed form. So that is reasonable statement in this unified theory that origin of knowledge is that infinite consciousness. And then what do we do? As we come into this knowledge, we try to acquire knowledge. Good word which is used in the mainstream, we discover knowledge. Never say we invent it. So this is very important statement that knowledge exists in the universe in the form of vidya. We uncover, discover it as if it is covered, and one great human being removes that cover, that is called discover. And then we get to know that knowledge, like gravitational force of the earth and so on and so forth. It was always there, but one day we discovered it. How human minds go forward and discover new and new faculty of knowledge. The means of its acquisition that we have to understand. How do we discover the knowledge? How do we acquire knowledge? Instrument to gain knowledge is made of subtle matter, which is the next diagram I want to, which I have from session number 3, the Sankhya diagram. Buddhi. This is me sitting here, and whatever is presented by my buddhi, I get to know it. So this is avbodhane. That was the root for the jna. That bodhane is seen here as buddhi. So the term buddhi is to display knowledge to me. Here, this is my desktop, so to say. When the knowledge is brought here, I say I got it. So these are my means of instrument, as we have discussed: 5 sensory organs, ahankar and buddhi. And this is the thing to be known. External world made of elements. So they send some signal and I pick them up. I send it, my senses send it inward. Idea I get to know. These are all very subtle instruments, while this is a gross element. So this is what my about. Instrument to gain knowledge is made of subtle matter called buddhi, also called chitta, that I have described many times. And 2 weeks later, I will have better opportunity when I talk about upasana, while Patanjali calls buddhi as chitta. Then we are equipped with 5 senses. The following diagram: manas and ahankar, buddhi. So buddhi is my key element, kind of my prime minister, and who is assisted by all these elements. Important to understand, no instrument can discern a thing subtler than itself. Is it not? If I am getting knowledge from these 5 senses, I can never get to know what is more subtle than them. So what it means is I can never know this, I can never know this, I can never know this, I can never know this. These are instruments. That's what. So though they are made of matter, all these boxes I have shown you are made of matter, but they are made of subtle matter. In particular, I pointed out 5 tanmatra: manas, ahankar, and buddhi, and that yellow box of prakriti. They are all derivatives of matter. Prakriti is in the most primary form, and they cannot be known by our instrument that we have. Simply because these, though they are made of matter, they are more subtle than the instruments we have. Now I move to the red color. They are entities. This is all the story about matter. Now we want to know my own consciousness and that of that infinite consciousness. them. They are not even made of matter. So that is a totally different cup of tea. Now we make a statement that will come from Patanjali Yoga. These black color, five tanmatra, that were derivatives of matter, are known in the Sampajñat Samadhi, in a yoga practice. So we will discuss all this later in Patanjali Yoga, that when I have attained Sampajñat Samadhi, my mind skin is blank. If I go to this slide again, by meditation practice, I have brought my chitta buddhi blank. Then somehow the knowledge about all this appears on this skin. Somehow it appears. This is the grace of that Ishwar. And then I get to know all this. This is how Patanjali or Kapil knew that these boxes are there. So that is called Sampajñat Yoga. When I make this blank, but knowledge about matter, this is all matter. This is all matter, subtle matter. Knowledge about them appear on my buddhi, not that that has been brought by five senses, but by itself. Nothing happens by itself. So that is due to the infinite consciousness. That is called Sampajñat Samadhi. Talking means of acquisition of knowledge. Knowledge is both matter and consciousness, and matter also is gross matter as well as subtle matter. So that comment was made related to the subtle matter. And about consciousness, we get to know when I am in asampajñat samadhi, which is a higher level yoga, when even this is blank and there is no superimposition of what is called pratyaya, that sampajñat samadhi. Because sampajñat samadhi is also given to us when this is the means, when there is absolutely nothing here. This is absolutely blank void. Then I get to know myself. What Patanjali says, yogas chittavetti niyodha tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. So I get to know my swarup, and that will be the knowledge about my TC and IC. So that is a still higher order samadhi called asampajñat samadhi. So of course what we are saying is the all that scientist, common man is functioning with his five senses and all that is good. But when it comes to Vedic unified theory, we have to get to know the subtle matter, subtle elements of matter, as well as the things that are not made of matter, namely consciousness. And that is, of course, to be gained in the practice of through the practice of yoga. Okay, let's move on. Now, this knowledge of matter and consciousness, this is classified in a particular manner, and how do they affect us? We want to understand it. So, they are matter and knowledge of things constituting five gross elements, as well as that of subtle things, is called avidya or apaya. So, vidya was the knowledge. Usually, the prefix a is for negation. So this term is could be confusing because usually we use the term avidya for ignorance, lack of knowledge. When knowledge is not there, like a small child is born, is void of knowledge, and we say that he has no knowledge, he has no vidya, he is avidya. But here, avidya has another different term, that this is knowledge but not vidya. So avidya is a particular kind of knowledge that is not vidya. So now the term vidya is a different term than we used in the start of the course. At the start of the course, we said vidya is the knowledge pertaining to anything in the universe. But now that vidya is being classified into two parts. Knowledge concerning the matter is being called as avidya, and knowledge concerning consciousness is being called as vidya. Should not be confusing, because when the context is there, you will understand it properly. So avidya is in the today's this particular session. Avidya is not lack of knowledge or ignorance; it is knowledge pertaining to matter, while vidya is knowledge pertaining to consciousness. So the former is the things that are made of five gross elements is acquired via sensory organs, and those that are subtle, that is obtained in sampajyat samadhi. Now the consciousness, because we want to know both knowledge of my consciousness as well as that of infinite consciousness, is called vidya or paravidya. This was avidya or aparavidya. Para is a prefix again, beyond. The visible world is avidya, and the invisible forces are paravidya, means that is beyond the visible world. So invisible forces. So knowledge of tiny consciousness and infinite consciousness is acquired when one is disconnect from mind, from chit in particular, without chit as an instrument, doing asampajyat samadhi. So this is talking the same thing as the previous slide, except two new terms have been used, that knowledge pertaining to consciousness is vidya, knowledge pertaining to matter is apaya vidya or avidya, which is, I will give you a hint so it will not be confusing. Because I said at the beginning, the word vidya is coming from the root with, which is sattayam as well as jnanat hai. Now look at the particular thread of sattayam. So, like we have a word in common usage, vidyaman. If something exists, we say it is vidyaman. And that is worth knowing. So, knowing that thing will be vidya. Now, in a philosophical sense, only thing that truly exists in non transient form. Because anything that is made of matter is going through transient. It is not stationary, so it is not quite existent as it is it not? Because at any moment it is going through change. Like if you are standing on the bank of a river, the water is flowing continuously, so there is never a moment that water body is stationary. It is a dynamic system. And in truly speaking, everything, even so-called stationary things, are dynamic systems where at the molecular level things are moving. So if the things are always in transient, what is that system? That system is never going through a constancy. It is always going through what is called parinami jagat. It is going through transient. So its own existence is questionable. So in other words, that which has constancy is only the consciousness, and therefore knowledge pertaining to that is called vidya, and knowledge pertaining to the transient system is called as avidya, because they never exist in a absolute sense. They are always going through changes. From the universe to its maker. So this is a, but why this two stream of knowledge, avidya and vidya? How how should we balance our life? What should be their interplay? That is brought out very beautifully in Yajurved 40th chapter, which is the last chapter and 14th mantra. If I have time, I will bring this out in a total sense toward the last slide is of that. But let's cover it at this point, that this two stream of knowledge, namely avidya about matter or apaya vidya about matter, and Vidya about consciousness, or Paya Vidya about consciousness. How should we balance our life? So, as a human being, I find myself in this world where I want to know everything, all kinds of things. So, how should I do this act of balancing? The primary objective of humans is to know the consciousness, both tiny consciousness, self realization, and realization of Ishwar. That is the ultimate objective of the human life. If I have not gained this, gone to that extent, then the life is not complete. I will have to be born again. So that is the climax I must achieve. But to achieve that, I must survive for certain years of life. And that is what is the objective of knowledge pertaining to matter. Namely, this is gaining vidya, this is knowledge of matter is avidya, this is so that I can survive for those many years of life. If I don't know agriculture, if I don't know how to build house, if I don't know the medicinal plants, etc., and get into disease and short life, then even this highest objective cannot be obtained. To attain them, I must have good health, good lifespan, and a natural basic quality of life. Then only I can go after the true Vidya or Paya Vidya. So this is in this one small sentence beautifully described avidyaya mrityum tetva. So knowledge of matter helps one cross over death. So death is mrityum. Otherwise, death is always looming at my face. I will die any moment. So if I know have acquired the essential knowledge of matter, that is primary requirement. Without that, I will not even lead the life to its fullest extent. So that is there, but that itself is not my total objective. Once I buy certain years of life, what do? I get to know the knowledge pertaining to consciousness, that is Vidya, that will bring Amritam, immortality. So, this is the wonderful statement from Yajurveda which guides us how I should balance my life. So, this brings us to the Vedas, and now this is a slide I have used in a previous session, transmission of knowledge by infinite consciousness, that eternal teacher to all of us. Of course, knowledge is such a sacred trait and pursuit in human life. Every moment we are engaged in it, we have an elaborate education process, all kinds of media and many things. Every moment we are interested in what is called human to human transmission of knowledge. We have libraries, etc. So many things are there. But here we are looking at transmission of knowledge by that who is the all knowing entity to me. We have discussed this slide, but one aspect I had not gone into detail. That's what I want to take this opportunity. So, this is, we have looked at it, their natural instinct when every member of that species is embedded with that basic skeleton of the knowledge. So, we also have some of that. Then we learn from the surroundings and trying to make sense out of it. We even learn from what animals' behavior and so on and so forth. So all that is happening around us in the sky, in the world, in the earth, underneath the earth, everywhere. Then this is important. That's what. And number three is by formal word, the Vedas, which we have discussed. How important was it? Then we use the dipole of eyes and sun and made a similarity with that intellect and the Vedas. So, like the sun is eternally useful, without sun we cannot visualize life here, but that is relevant for all species. In particular to the human beings, Besides the dipole of sun, eyes and the sun, we have another important, equally important dipole of our buddhi, the intellect, and the Vedas. That gives us the inner light, where our buddhi is the inner eyes, so to say. Today we have discussed this direct transmission of knowledge by that Ishwar to an individual human being deep in meditation, what we have described as sampajñat samadhi, intuitive knowledge. And in a previous session, we have said that yes, that infinite consciousness speaks to us in triple warning system in our conscience when we are about to do something wrong. So that was doubt, fear, and shame. So that is his mechanism direct from that entity to an individual direct. This is one-to-one transmission of knowledge. Now I want to, this was not fully covered, and I want to take this opportunity because today we are discussing knowledge in particular. So this is given in the form of the word. Now we have understood the Sankhya diagram. So we can say that the first generation human beings, couple of them, one of them, four of them, whatever they are, they were embedded with those words in their memory. Now it is not difficult to visualize because that entity can put into the knowledge at the place, and like all of us inherit certain kinds of talents which are different for different people. They are all planted here. In the same manner, that entity can plant the so-called words of the Vedas in a particular human being at the for the very first human generation. And that mechanism I am describing here at item 3. Formal word, the Vedas. Then I want to relate it to it. A picture here. Just imagine, the picture may not be exactly representing this. I want you to imagine if man dying grandfather, it could be a mother or whatever it is, but we are not differentiating between father and mother. It's just one grandparent. So suppose the person is on a deathbed, he knows that end is coming, and he calls his grandchild and hands over a book to him. Just imagine, this is not something implausible, very plausible. A person on his deathbed, very old man, he has a book in his hand and he calls his grandchild and he says, I am about to die. I will leave this world, but I want to give you this book. And then he says, this book is very, very important, very precious. I want you to keep it in a very safe manner, and you should also pass it on to your children and your grandchildren. So it is of that importance, that relevance that I give it to you. I want you to read it because there are some important message from me to you, and you should utilize that message. So this is not something implausible, very plausible, is it not? That one person hands over a book to his grandchild and wants him to keep it safe as well as use it, both the aspects. This is also not difficult to visualize. The child takes that gift, he keeps it very safe, but he does not read it that often. For some generation, they are using that message, reading it, passing on the message to his child, and so on and so forth. That way, the message is also percolating down few generations, but down the line, That book is being kept in a very safe manner, in a safe box. Forget to read it, or they don't make use of it, or now the language or the words have changed to this meaning, but they still maintain their duty that they must pass it on to the next generation. That's what has happened with the Vedas. And as we discussed in the second session, that like even in present India, there are people who have memorized all these words of the Vedas. So they are keeping this book in safe, but they don't know what it means. They don't live according to that. That's why we are so grateful to that Adi Shankar and also to Maharishi Dayanand, who has taught us how to decipher the meaning of the Vedas. So that is his. Of course, there's somebody like I said that day and today also I can point out an American can make a valid complaint. What is this? If it is so important, I should also have this word. But then you don't complain that grandfather who gave his book, who gave his instruction, but then his following generation did not live in the letter and spirit. They only maintained those papers, but did not go into the spirit of the books. It is not such a bad situation because the author of that book, that infinite consciousness, while those words are surviving, having maintaining direct link with us. Nobody can complain as long as this feature number 4 is present. If you are honest in your heart, if you do meditation, if you are with pure intellect, not harm anybody else, these things are very important Sampajya Samadhi, then you get this message also from him. So there is nothing lacking in his scheme. His scheme is perfect. It is that we don't want to become follow it properly. That is what this message is all about. Let's move on. Nature of Vidya and Avidya. There is also something. The extent Vidya, both of them. Vedas contain both of them. Get away from them. Now there is a element of mysticism. Vedas contain both Vidya and Avidya, but their depth is altogether different. And let us try to understand it why like this. Nature of Vidya and Avidya. This is knowledge pertaining to consciousness, which cannot come from any book, which asampajyat samadhi. This is knowledge pertaining to matter, which you can read from any library, anywhere, which is very easily available, except for those subtle elements like buddhi, ahankar, panchtanmatya, manas, etc. But let us understand this. Both vidya and avidya can be lost in time, not guarded properly. Today we have a lot of mechanisms. We put it in a disk, and then we are concerned that we write it again and again. Nobody knows all these things. How much effort is being made to pass on the knowledge that we have to the next generation. We are making all kinds of efforts, not only paper, books and paper, on all kinds of other media, because we know it. If it is not properly guarded, it will be lost. It is liable to get lost in time. Hence, the importance of transmission of knowledge by education. This cannot be overemphasized. Everybody knows it. Now, look at this. Our very intrinsic human nature, Vidya devolves with time. This has to be borne in mind. The knowledge of consciousness devolves with time. Of course, both can devolve with time. But even if it is you are guarding the books properly, as I talked about the Vedas book, that grandchild was guarding the book properly, But the true knowledge was not that book. The meaning of the words that has been lost. That we know what has happened to the spiritual knowledge of the Vedas that has devolved with time. But with him, with our effort, the knowledge related to matter and may evolve with time, which we are of course seeing in today's world. We are making tremendous progress in modern physical sciences and technological advances. Avidya is going like anything, at almost at geometric progression or exponentially. But Vidya is devolving with time, and that's why this course is important. We want to arrest the decline of Vidya, the spiritual knowledge. Today's human life is not balanced. There is a lot of emphasis on avidya, emphasis on vidya. That's why this course is so important. That is why the Vedas in this particular manner. This has to be borne in mind. And for this reason alone, Vedas will always remain relevant, like the sun has to remain relevant. Vedas contain Vidya at its climax. True knowledge is that infinite consciousness. When he gives knowledge to us in the form of the Vedas, Vedas contain both Vidya as well as Avidya. Vidya is at its climax, Avidya is in seed form because human beings are expected to develop this. This is not in climax, but this is in its climax. So today's spiritual knowledge will be less than what is contained in the Vedas. But our attempt should be to go much as far as we can go there. So that brings us to the end of the session. The summary is about the knowledge. We have discussed various aspects of it. Other species are strong in instinct. They have no intellect almost. We are weak in instinct, but we have a strong, powerful intellect. Also discussed Vidya is infinite. It exists contact with the Vedas so that we use more and more of it. This is why this Sanatan Vedic Dharma is so important. Best possible blueprint of Vedas and will always be that. Thank you for attention. See you next.
Amrit said to
पहले लगता है बहुत हो गया
Amrit like to
अभी बंद हुआ लास्ट स्लाइड पर।
Yeah. Oh, that you can, next time you go over it.
हाँ, next time वो slide.
मैं आपको उससे जोड़ दूंगी जो हमने नया सिस्टम लगाया है ना, और भी वो नहीं डिस्कनेक्ट होगा।
क्या वीडियो अपलोड हो जाता है?
तो वाईफाई कनेक्शन है, उससे क्या, उससे उसका क्या संबंध है? उससे उसका कोई संबंध नहीं, वो तो वाईफाई का, जैसे आप डीएवीएस निवास किसी से जोड़ते हो, उससे उसका क्या संबंध है?
अच्छा, तो वो जो इंटरनेट में
हाँ
तो नया जुड़ गया,
हाँ,
ज़्यादा पावरफुल होगा।
ये सॉलिड क्यों ये
ये हो गया तो इसको मैंने हटा दिया था। इधर अभी भी आप
ये तो डीएवीएस
कनेक्ट हो गया।
कनेक्टेड दिखा रहा है। फिर करो,
ये मैंने कनेक्ट ऑटोमेटिकली नहीं है। कनेक्ट कहाँ से टूट गया बस, पर वो तो टूट गया था ना, हैंगआउट तो टूट गया।
हाँ वो तो उसी से टूट जाता है, फिर आपका
भले ही हो, चलो कोई बात, ये आपका ठीक है। आई थिंक दैट हैपेंड टुवर्ड्स द एंड।
अब ये देखो नीचे हो गया, इसमें दिखा रहा है ना, और भी देखिए उसको और भी देखिए कितना तेज आ रहा है।
अब इसका पासवर्ड मालूम
नहीं मालूम है, फिर वो थोड़ा उसको ऐसा है, सीक्रेट है,
है?
थोड़ा सीक्रेट है, किसी को दिया नहीं है, नहीं तो वो स्कूल पे
अभी पूरा काम नहीं कर रहा।
नहीं काम कर रहा है।
फिर ये चलना चाहिए था।
हाँ नहीं तो
नहीं तो आगे
मैंने उनसे तो कहा था ये कुछ खराब है या क्या है, कह रहा था देखना, ये हमेशा यहाँ तो सबसे अच्छा आना चाहिए।
रिकॉर्डिंग में देखूंगा ना, अभी भी ऐसे पता है।
ये क्या, हाँ काउंटडाउन का टाइमर रखा है ये नई चीज लगाइए। नहीं वो पहला गया था होगा, फिर दूसरा शुरू हुआ ना।
ओ हाँ, दूसरा क्या अभी प्रॉपर्ली है नहीं हुआ है।
उसको एंड नहीं किया आपने, यूजिंग स्टॉप ब्रॉडकास्ट।
वो तो वो दिखा रहा था ना कि हो सकता है बाद में बनाए गए, देखते हैं थोड़ी देर के बाद पता चलेगा।
अच्छा अभी ये ऑन